Hey, this is Sarah Nurse, and you're listening to Tobin Tonight.
We're here with Sarah Nurse. Sarah, I'm so glad you were able to come on the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Born and raised in Hamilton, Ontario. I'm guessing you were going for the Ticats?
Ticats all the way, Oski wee wee.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about being born and raised there in Hamilton.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. Obviously, Hamilton, the Hammer, it's kind of that hard-working steel city. And, I have very deep ties here. Both my grandparents actually worked in the steel industry here. So this is a city that I was born and raised and definitely proud to be from.
Tell us how you kind of got your interest in hockey, because I know we're going to expand on a little bit, because when you got younger boys growing up, of course, they idolized guys like Gretzky, Lemieux, Connor McDavid, even to this day. Who were some of the people that inspired you to get into hockey?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't think there was somebody that I actually looked to and kind of was the reason that I got into hockey. For me, it was more skating. I love to skate. And so once they put me on the ice, I kind of took off and never came back. It was just the natural progression. It was kind of either hockey or figure skating. And I think my parents looked at the figure skating bills and were like, probably not. Let's try hockey. And so that's how I kind of got into hockey.
Okay. And of course, there's the story about, I believe, and again, I'm no good at math. I will put that right out there first and foremost. But I believe you would be like 7 years old or so at the 2002 Olympics watching that. And the story is that you created your own like gold medals, your own flag, and that's when you kind of said, I'm going to be a gold medalist someday for Team Canada.
Yeah, I remember 2002 pretty vividly. I don't think that I actually asked to watch the game. I think, I had already started playing hockey at that point, and I think my parents were like, oh, look, there are girl hockey players too. And I actually made like medals out of ribbon and paper. And after that moment, watching them win gold, I guess I went around telling people like, when I play for Team Canada one day, and obviously my family was like, well, maybe like we're going to see if you're going to play on Team Canada one day. But I guess I was pretty adamant that I was playing on that team one day. And so that was definitely a pretty pivotal moment in my hockey career.
Yeah, I'm sure when you go back to these people that when they're like, yeah, she wasn't going to make it, or if you talk to them, you're like, yeah, where am I to?
Exactly.
Where am I to now?
Exactly, yeah. So that's pretty fun, actually, because we get to have a lot of fun with that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I watched 2002 Olympics. I remember my biggest moment with 2002 is, the Korea between the legs kind of to Lemieux, but even the women's game was really ramped up because of Haley Wickenheiser kind of comes out and says that they threw our flag down on the floor.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's like, don't mess with Haley Wickenheiser.
No, absolutely not.
So
I wouldn't.
So have you ever, like, I guess there have been teams where Haley's been on with you. Is she like a good role model in the room? Have you ever had to pick her brain?
Yeah, I've been with her not too many times, but a few. After the 2014 Olympics, she was a part of the national team program before. I believe she officially retired. And so it was kind of cool just to see the way she carried herself on and off the ice, kind of her attention to detail, the way that she prepared for practices and games, and just seeing her as a competitor was pretty inspiring to me. And she's somebody that obviously like I read about and I wanted to know about once I actually started getting into hockey and knowing what was going on. So definitely in my early teens, she was somebody that I looked up to, and she's like a force to be reckoned with in the hockey world, and she's still doing big things today.
Absolutely. I mean, it's Cassie Campbell and her are like two role models I look at for women's hockey, and it's really cool in the aspect of, Cassie Campbell kind of gives you that approach of she can be fierce but can be very humble, where Haley at this time is like, I kind of have like the Kobe mentality with Haley, where it's almost like,
I agree. She's a pretty fierce competitor for sure.
Absolutely, and that's what you want on your team. Now, of course, you come from a pretty rich family in terms of the athleticism. You've got, a cousin Darnell. Yeah, no one's ever heard of Darnell. Of course, no. Who's Darnell? And then, of course, Kia, which we see on TSN every now and again, and, of course, playing basketball. Now, I'm going to ask you, did either one of them ever force your hand and say, yo, join me in basketball, or yo, join me in hockey?
No, I think growing up, we all kind of did everything. So like, I remember playing them both in soccer and basketball and all those different sports. And so when we kind of settled on what we were going to do, it was kind of like we're all kind of doing our own thing and forging our own paths in our respective sports. I think it's really fun. The three of us are, I think, just over a year apart. I think like between the three of us, there's like 13 months or something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so we all grew up doing everything together. You know, I would go to basketball camps with Kia and she would always beat me and everybody else by a mile, but I would come in second. So. But she's a pretty fierce basketball player, so I definitely didn't touch that. But no, they've been amazing support systems, even from when we were younger to now.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't stop there. I think it's like your parents and your grandparents, or it could have been a relative. I think it's like McNabb, who is in the football as well. So I mean, like,
yeah,
I just imagine being around the Nurse family that if you don't at least carry your own in a sport, they're going to be like, Sarah, you got to dump this guy. He's like, he can't carry his own. Or with Darnell, it'd be like, Darnell, this girl can't even throw a football. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, definitely. If you talk to my dad, he'll tell you. He'll give you the rundown on that.
Yeah. That's why I stick to podcasting. If we ever meet, Sarah, I'll be like, yo, I'm a podcast guy, so don't even try me.
Yeah, don't even try.
yeah. I'll be like, let's go out on the ice, and then be like, yeah, did you hear Sarah Nurse beat this guy 13-0? They'll be like, was he a hockey player? No. Well, then what do you expect? Like,
that explains it.
Exactly. Now, I want to bring it back here as well, because you went to the University of Wisconsin. I believe it said that you were the first female player that ever scored a hat trick with the University of Wisconsin. I don't know if that's completely true. Is that true, Sarah?
Yes. So the stat is actually that I'm the first player to score a hat trick against the Minnesota Golden Gophers, which is like our number one arch rival. And we're usually like the two teams are usually top 5 in the nation, so we go at it pretty much. And so that's a pretty cool stat because we've had amazing players like Megan Duggan, Hillary Knight, Brianna Decker go to that school, and I'm the only person that has done that out of all those people. So that's my claim to fame.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can imagine if you ever met them. Like, I know Silver Pyeonchang was a little bit of a bitter disappointment, but I wonder if they were in the handshake here, and you're like, yeah, well, I still got a hat trick against you guys, so.
Somebody's got to have some bragging rights around there.
You were drafted 2nd overall by the Toronto Furies in 2018. How did that feel? Because I know Hamilton isn't necessarily Toronto, but it's still Ontario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Hamilton, and so growing up in Hamilton, the team we cheer for is the Leafs, and kind of by extension, the Furies are the Leafs' kind of sister organization at the time. And so that was pretty special. I mean, getting to be drafted 2nd overall, getting to actually stay at home and play professional hockey at the time was an awesome achievement and something that I'll definitely remember. And my family had a great time that day, and it was really cool.
No, and I think it's really cool just because the 2nd overall, and especially with the hometown, in a way, the hometown tie there as well. Mm-hmm. You've been a part of the Olympic team for the one that won silver at Pyeongchang. That game was intense. Kind of sucked that it had to come down to all means of a shootout. But what are some takeaways that you have of that tournament, especially now where we have the news that 2020 Canadian athletes aren't going?
Yeah, the thing about the Olympics is it's an event like no other. It comes along, every 4 years, and it's something that us as athletes that, don't truly have a major professional league to play in, that's our Stanley Cup or that's our Super Bowl. And so I think I'm thinking of these athletes today who have announced, that they're not going to go to the Tokyo 2020 Olympics because I know the hard work that they put in to getting there. And so my hope is that the IOC will definitely postpone the Olympics because, every athlete has the right to train and feel safe and have their families go over and watch them in the Olympics. And so, yeah, Pyeongchang was absolutely incredible. It's such a unique experience and something that, looking back, I feel like I didn't even breathe the entire 2 weeks and it went by an absolute blur because you're surrounded by so many amazing athletes from all over the world, and just seeing the way they think and the way that they train and the way that they prepare for their different events is so cool. And it was so special to be able to share that with my teammates and my family.
We had the Olympics here in 2010. Where were you two in 2010? And did you enjoy the time of watching it in Canada?
Yeah, I was home in 2010, and so we got to see the Olympics in Vancouver, and that was so cool because even though I wasn't in Vancouver, just seeing the Canadian pride all over the country was amazing. I mean, in 2010, I would have been, I guess, 15, and I don't even know if I truly appreciated it because, being so young and having the Olympics in Canada, it's something that honestly, I think I thought happened all the time and it actually doesn't. And so I think looking back, I almost wish I would have appreciated it more because, who knows when Canada's ever going to have an Olympics back on home soil. So that was so cool. And hearing the stories from my teammates who were in Vancouver were pretty special. And so hopefully one day we get to experience that again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just bringing it back to like the 2002. Like I'm looking at the next upcoming of females in hockey, and I mean, like you're one of the names that pops up. Poulin is another name that people bring together just because of her Olympic moments, just in general. And then you have Spooner as well. So
no, that's awesome.
But I do agree with you in the aspect of the 2010 Olympics because I probably will share a video with you after. They have a montage video that they do with Brian. I think it's like Brian Williams that just does the intro. It's kind of when you're watching it when you're younger, you're like, oh, shut up, buddy. You're gonna have to. You'll cover other Olympics. And then when you look at it now, you're like, no, that was his last kind of Olympics, and the music that they played, the Canadian moments they have, like, the athletes that came on and apologized for not even finishing or because they fell, and you're like, why are you apologizing to me, someone sitting at home eating salt and vinegar chips? Like this, like I get it, it happens, but it just was so Canadian, and I think it's an aspect that when you go back, you kind of wish you had the time back to really appreciate it more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, the Olympics are definitely a special thing that only comes around every 4 years for your respective games. And so a lot can happen in 4 years, and there's definitely no guarantees that if you go to one Olympics, you're going to get to go to another one. And, there's qualifications. There's so many different things that you have to do to make it to an Olympics. So when you're there, when you watch it, like you really have to appreciate and enjoy that moment because those are moments in time that you're never going to get back.
Yeah, and that kind of brings it back to winning silver at Pyeongchang. I know it was very disappointing for you guys, but like, when you look back at it from years from now, you'll say like, well, at least I was there. At least we came home with something.
Yeah, I mean, like even the way that I look at my hockey career now, I think it put a lot of things into perspective that I thought that when I got to the Olympics, like my whole life was going to just revolve around me being an Olympian. And I remember getting back to Canada and being like, all right, like I'm still who I was before I left for Korea. And so I look at my hockey career and I've worked so hard to accomplish what I've accomplished. And if I never, lace up a pair of skates again and look back at my hockey career, I can say, I've accomplished what I want to accomplish and I'm proud of that.
Now, I know you said that if you hung up your skates today that you'd be fine on calling it a career, but let's hope that's no time soon because this is a topic I kind of want to touch on as well here. It's very trendy, very recent, always gets brought up every so often, but it doesn't seem like it's getting as much attention as what it is now. It's, the female hockey players and their contracts and creating this WNHL, like Women's National Hockey League. Can you give me any updates on that and just your thoughts on how things are going?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we have what's called the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, or the PWHPA for short, and that actually came out of the CWHL folding last year, probably around this time actually. And that's because the league wasn't sustainable and we weren't going to be able to continue. And so about 200 players actually got together and we were like, we need a call to action. We need women's hockey and women's professional hockey to be better and to improve and to be a viable option for little girls who dream of playing hockey one day. And so we got together and we are pushing for better. We don't want to sit on the status quo. We want to reject that. And we want women to play hockey professionally. We want them to make a living wage. We want them to be treated, professionally and have all the resources and the infrastructure that we need to be successful as athletes. Because at the end of the day, people are looking at us and our product and they want to see how good we are. And it's like, well, you can watch us play. And you have to understand that we don't do this for a living. We don't train every day. People have real jobs. Like people are teachers, nurses, all these different professions. They do their 9 to 5 and then they come and play later. And so we're not being set up for real success. We're being set up for injury and fatigue. And it's really sad because they're really incredible hockey players. So that's why we're pushing for, a WNHL so that women can truly take hockey seriously and it not be a hobby, it actually be a profession.
I really enjoy, like, just in the broad sense of the term, like, I know you have like the Canada-US rivalry that's very strong, but when you had members of the Canadian team and the US team coming together as a whole, I mean, to a hockey fan, to someone who just loves the rivalry, you just kind of look at it and say, okay, they're putting their rivalry aside here for a bigger issue. So, maybe let's take this seriously. Because I can imagine, like, sure, you might have played with a few of these people on different teams, but when it comes to a global issue or something that it impacts all of you, you basically say, like, let's leave this at the door, or, we're fighting for a bigger cause here, because, like, we just reminisced of the 2002 Olympics. You want to see more moments of that, just not with Olympics, but in actual, like, the WNHL,
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that rivalry is pretty fierce, and it's something that is probably one of the biggest rivalries in sports. And, when we put on that Team Canada or Team USA jersey, like, we're going 150% and we want to beat the other team. But that being said, this is definitely bigger than all of us. And so putting that rivalry aside for a second, we have to think about the future generations of our sport, and we want to leave the game in a better place than what we got it in. And so as we look to kind of do this thing, it was like, let's put all this aside and really band together, because there's strength in numbers and there's strength in all of our voices together. And that's something that we realized pretty quick. And so I think if people see that, we're willing to put aside this huge rivalry we have and really get together, I think it's pretty serious, because there's definitely a lot of hatred on the ice. And sometimes you look across the boardroom and you see one of those girls who, gave you a cheap shot the other day. But, we're definitely doing this for the future of women's hockey. And so there's a place for little girls to dream of playing in.
And just to bring it whole, I mean, if no one's ever gone to see a women's hockey game, and I'll give you a little bit of background here so you can understand just where I'm coming from with it. Like, growing up, I was involved in basketball. I've never really played hockey, just wasn't my thing, wasn't really allowed, because if I had a real good crack on the head, that's it. But as I got into university, I was always like, the men's games just seem a little bit more intense. But when I went to Loyalist College in Belleville, it just happened to be one of those fluke situations where a teacher overheard me make a comment of saying, like, who wants to be a broadcaster? And I'm in sports journalism, and I was like, who wants to broadcast games? And they're like, all right, you, Brian, you're doing women's basketball. And at first I was like, oh man, like, I don't know anything about women's basketball. So I started doing, like, the women's basketball games, and I really started to see the, just how intense they are. And I was like, geez, I love doing women's basketball games to the very end of the season, where when the teacher would say, Brian, we need someone to fill in on a men's game, I'd be like, no, I love women's basketball. I'm sticking here. So then awesome. I used to just watch the women's hockey games, and you'd see some of your friends go like, yeah, but like there's the NHL on. I'm like, yeah, but we get to watch the NHL all the time. Like, let's see what the women can do. And it brought in a new wave of life there when you guys had the women's 3-on-3 game at the All-Star. And just seeing how exciting and fast-paced that was. Can you express or explain, like, the joy of, being a part of that, and what was it like being in that atmosphere?
Yeah, I think definitely, just to speak on your point a little bit about, not really knowing women's sports, I think that a lot of people don't give women's sports a chance because they really don't have to, because they don't have to see it all the time. And that kind of goes to this whole visibility piece that all professional women's sports are fighting for. But I think the NHL All-Star Game this year was an absolutely incredible experience. In the previous years, the NHL has kind of extended that invitation to a couple of female players to come, demonstrate some, I think it was their skills competition, and then be around, do youth clinics and sign autographs and things like that. And this year, with what was going on in women's hockey, they extended the invitation to us to actually come play, which was kind of the perfect platform that we needed to get that visibility and to show more people our product. And so it was, again, kind of the perfect scenario for us. And we appreciated it so much because it definitely gave us that opportunity. And it was a lot of fun. And again, that Canada-USA rivalry, it's intense. And I think it's kind of funny because we actually had to share a locker room with the U.S. because, there weren't a ton of us. There was only 20. And so we shared a locker room with them. And when we came in after the game, we're trying to celebrate and have a lot of fun. And you could see on the U.S. side, they weren't too happy about that. But it was a lot of fun and such a unique experience that had a ton of positive reviews.
No, and I believe I seen on Instagram, or maybe TSN shared it, where Granado's crowd in the U.S. had to come by and give you guys some Tim Hortons and some donuts, and they did not look thrilled, and I was like, nor would you be.
No, a bet's a bet.
Yeah, a bet's a bet, but at least they lived up to their word. But you could just see it on her face. She was just like why? Why Timmy's?
Yeah.
Why? And then you're like, here, why don't you just have a sip of Timmy's? And they're like, oh, okay, this is understood.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You weren't just interested in hockey growing up. You played basketball, volleyball. You also dabbled in the piano. I'm wondering when we're going to see some Instagram, piano moments.
Honestly, I've been thinking about it, but the issue is I don't have a keyboard. So what happened with the piano is that I played in high school and we had to take a music class, and I didn't want to take, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the flute thing, and there's this piano class, and it was basically teach yourself how to play the piano. So pretty much I taught myself how to play the piano, and it was so fun. It's therapeutic. But I've been thinking about getting a keyboard. I just don't have one right now, so we're gonna have to stay tuned for that.
You get the keyboard and I'll be a backup singer, and we'll make some coronavirus remixes. I've seen a lot of good ones. I've seen someone come up with Blink 182's Wash My Hands Again. I've had one where instead of Bare Naked Ladies, if I had $1 million, it was if I had the coronavirus, I would be working from home.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to find that. That's hilarious.
Yeah. It's innovative, and I'm glad that people are staying inside and just coming up with creative ways to, deal with it. Because in the world we live in now, where every day someone's someone else has it, I'm really scared. It's just stay inside, you'll be okay. There's more content coming on Instagram that you can watch. A lot of celebrities are doing Instagram lives now. And speaking of that, I'm sure if you tweeted out at Drake, he would give you another mention.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, I want to mention this, of course, because we've had a little bit of fun here talking about the serious topics of hockey, how you got involved in women's sport in general. Are you ready to play a game of How Canadian?
Oh, gosh. Sure.
Okay, so the idea here is that you have to top something that I'm going to say that's very Canadian, and you have to make it sound more Canadian. So we had it with Splash and Boots in our last episode. So I'll give you the example that they gave. So I said, I opened the door for a customer. How Canadian of me. And he came back and said, I was late for this interview. I called an Uber and a moose came. How Canadian of me.
Oh, gosh.
If I'll start, I'll go with, I offered someone a Timmy's, they rejected it, but I still apologized. How Canadian of me.
I stopped at Timmy's on my way home. They were out of Timbits, but he offered to bring one to my igloo later.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Was that okay?
Yeah, I like that. Or in a hockey stance, as stereotypical as it was, a USA player slashed me, I slashed him back, but apologized for us both. How Canadian of me.
Oh, gosh. I hit one of the American defenders, didn't say sorry to her, but apologized to the ref for having to call a penalty on me. How Canadian of me.
Oh, I like it. Okay, that's good.
Oh, God, this is stressing me out.
That's good. No, we don't want no stress. No stress. Okay, we'll move on to another part of the interview. Let's go with some of Sarah Nurse's favorite things. Okay. What is your favorite movie?
I love Wolf of Wall Street. Wolf of Wall Street or Harry Potter. Either of those I could watch on repeat. Yeah.
Harry Potter.
Yes.
I suppose that you don't get tripped on the ice, because if I was on the ice and you just scored 3 goals on me, I'd be like, oh, go watch your Harry Potter. Go watch your Harry Potter.
Yeah, I'd be like, maybe you should too, and then you'd be scoring goals.
Yeah, I need a magic broom just to get past you. What's your favorite artist?
Like singer?
Yes.
I don't know why I just went to painting. I was like Michelangelo.
My favorite artist, painting.
I mean, I love Beyonce. You know, I know that's everybody says Beyonce, but like she's my girl. Love Beyonce. Everything she does.
Oh man, I can hear some Drake sad songs here in the background. He gives you the shout out. I'm expecting a diss track. Yeah. There's gonna be a line there that's gonna be so deep where it's like, went to the hospital, didn't get a nurse, and then you're just gonna be like, that's about me.
There it is. It is. No, he's so good too. But he's not my favorite just yet.
Not yet. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Your favorite snack? Now, I've heard that your favorite food was fries, but come on.
Yeah, I love French fries. I think like if there was only one food left in the world, I'd pick potatoes because it's the most versatile. Like you can have French fries, baked potatoes, mashed potatoes, like scallop potatoes, gnocchi. You know, like potatoes are the best food.
You're thinking outside the box there. You're like you're the meme that the guy just keeps on tapping on his head where it's like.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what can you make out of potatoes? But I do love, again, stick with the potato theme. I love chips. Like, if that's a snack that I'm going to go to, it's chips.
It's like if you're in the locker room and it's like a tense moment. It's like, all right, girls, we're going into 3-on-3 overtime with US, and you hear in the background, crunch, 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 crunch. Someone tell Sarah Nurse to stop eating those chips.
Honestly, that's happened before. That used to be my go-to. I'd eat Doritos like in between periods in high school.
People just poking fun at you. You're just, I'm just going to make it to the Olympics one day. You don't know. You don't see.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, Sarah, this is just a game of volleyball. Yeah, well, stop it. I'm stress eating over here.
Exactly.
So we went with favorite movie. All right, we did favorite musician, and then you said painting. Great. Favorite artist. What would be your, I guess, favorite TV show growing up?
I think when I was really little, it was like Elmo, like Sesame Street. And then I actually loved Proud Family. I don't know if you know what that is.
Oh,
Family Channel.
The Proud Family.
Yes. Yeah. So those are some of my go-tos.
I'm guessing it has to do with a little bit of the Beyonce tie in the Proud Family?
Yeah,
of course it does. Sarah hears Beyonce does the work and it's like, this cartoon is crap.
It's my favorite show.
But fair enough. What would be your favorite player that you played with and played against?
That's a good question. I think like a ton of my teammates on Team Canada are so cool to watch and see what they do. But I definitely think my favorite person to play with on the same team is definitely Marie-Philippe Poulin. Like, she's so skilled, and like every time you come to the rink, she does something to surprise you. So that's pretty neat. I definitely think that I have a lot of respect for Brianna Decker, who's on the American team. I think she's a fantastic player as well. So I definitely hate playing against her, but I would love to have her on my team.
And that's why we need that WNHL, just to see the mix of who would have on each team. I absolutely enjoyed the conversation there, Sarah. I guess the last thing we'll mention is, how have you been dealing with the self-isolation?
Yeah, it's definitely been difficult. I actually got home last week. I was in Montreal for a little bit, and I've actually been, these last 4 months, I've been traveling here, there, and everywhere. So this week, long stint that I've been at home is like one of the longest times that I've been at home in a very long time. So it's actually kind of nice. I get to spend a little time with my family, catch up on some things, and do things that I don't normally have time to do, like clean my bedroom. But I mean, it's definitely a very different time what we have going on. And so I've honestly been unplugging a lot. I've been trying to limit my time on social media because, you know, there's a lot of negativity going on, and it's tough hearing about how many cases and how many people are dying and getting kind of diagnosed with the virus. And so I've been trying to unplug and recharge and just, you know, take this time to be with my family and hang out with them, because it's something that, you know, a lot of us take for granted.
Speaking of just the whole negativity on like social media and whatnot, like when you see how many cases there are, for example, I'm one of these people that I don't know what the term is. I guess it's when something really minor goes wrong, it's like you treat it as if it's the most major thing in the world. It's like you stub your toe on a bench. You're like, oh, that's it. I gotta go to the hospital. I'm hurt. Yeah. I'm hurt for 3 days. But yeah. I overheard like someone at my work say that, oh, they were in contact with someone that went to a funeral home, and this is in Newfoundland, where it was like, you know, they were telling people that if you were at this funeral home on Sunday, someone had the coronavirus there, and if you were in contact, and it's like a 3-way thing where it's like this person had to be in contact with this person, but this person person, and it just goes down the line. But she was mentioning about how she believes one of her friends was in contact, and I was like, oh, great, like, I'm gonna get it now because you were, and then it turns out that none of them had the symptoms, and I was like, okay, breathe a big sigh of relief. But for like 20 minutes in the day, I was like, oh God.
Yeah, no, it's tough.
Where am I going?
Yeah, because you read about all these symptoms and different cases, and you're like, oh, I 100% have it. I guarantee I have it. And it's just scary because you make these scenarios up in your head when things aren't actually happening. And obviously this time can take a toll on your mental health, anxiety about the whole situation. But I think if we just kind of take this time, and realistically, we're never going to get this time again, this kind of self-isolation just with your family, kind of not having to do really that much. And I think we have to kind of switch our perspective and almost appreciate it a little bit, because we're going to come out of this stronger than ever as long as we kind of listen to the recommendations with like the World Health Organization and obviously our government. And so I think it's going to take a little time, but we're definitely going to come out of this.
Now, Sarah, are you ready to hear the most massive pun that you'll ever hear? And I'm going to tie up this interview all together.
Do it.
So we've talked about Drake. We've talked about your career. We talked about you spending time at home. Do you see where I'm going with this? Just hold on, we're going home.
That's awful.
Yeah, what was that? That was pitiful. Luckily it's over. Don't ever sing again, Tobin. We want guests to come on the show. Anyways, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Sarah Nurse for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.